like to call the Shoreline RFA meeting to order for July 24th, 2005. Please stand and join the state flag. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one
Sorry, we had a hiccup. I gotta make sure that it's recording. It is.
It says recording.
Okay. How about Commissioner Nye? Let me do this again. Okay. Tyler Byers. Rick Nye. Okay. Barb Sullivan and Josh Pat. Thank you. Everybody else is here. Do we have any public comment? Don't see anybody, that is on.
No.
Doug, did you have anything you wanted to say tonight for public comment?
No, thank you.
Okay. Consideration of the agenda sheet, anybody?
I think we're good, thank you.
I'm gonna add business cards in there. We'll talk about it briefly. Approval of the past minutes from July 10th, 2025.
I make a motion that we accept the minutes for July 10th.
The motion by Commissioner Webster. Do we have a second?
Second.
All together now?
Yeah, 2 seconds, a double second.
Yeah. Is there any corrections or comments? Hearing none, on favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. I don't see any correspondence. Jean, do we have anything to add? Fire Marshal Burgess, you're up. Impact mitigation fees.
All right, I'll keep this short. I won't ramble, I promise. Good afternoon, everybody. So I'm just gonna go over, give you guys a quick synopsis of what the Fire Marshal's office has been working on the last quarter. And I'll start with the impact fee sheet that you guys should all have. There's a sheet that shows the green and yellow and the red, which you're familiar with. And on the first sheet, this is the quarterly fees that we've collected. So you'll see down at the bottom is the totals for the year so far. We have a fire permits column. So that column shows the fire permit fees that we've collected through the various fire permit fees that we have established are required for the various buildings that have gone up. And then our impact fees that were collected this last quarters for April, May, and June. And then our operational permit fees that we collect through operational permits for the various businesses that require them. Any questions about those?
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just curious about the bump in April, or is it just varied month to month?
Yeah, so every quarter is going to be different depending on which projects are finalized and when fire impact fees are paid out. So some quarters you'll have very little, other quarters you'll have a project that will pay out into the city, and then the city releases those fire impact fees to us. So that's why you see such a huge bump, and especially in April. So that was a project that released their impact fees. That's what they owed. These are large 400+ unit multifamily buildings. So that impact fee comes all at once. And then next quarter might not look like that, depending on if we have another release of funds. So that's kind of the purpose of this other sheet. It just kind of gives you a quick synopsis of active projects that we have that have either been finalized or building permit has been issued, and whether the impact fees have been collected or not.
You'll notice too something, and you have a good point there.
in that sometimes it takes quite a while for a project to actually come all the way through to permitting and where the fees are collected. So, and typically, you know, if you're not submitting plans and then 3 months later you're getting your permit, it's usually, you know, a year or two, you know, sometimes more. And that's why, like, you know, if you look at the data issued and all that, you know, you can see, you know, where those were issued, but if you go back to like when they were actually, you know, put into the system, probably in rank and top, I mean, they're all over the place. You know, the ones that we're collecting this year are not likely to be submitted this year. They're probably from last year's.
Are there any impact fees being collected in the North Shore area, or is it all shoreline?
Just city of Shoreline right now.
Does that have to be run through the city? That's
Correct. It would have to be included into the comp plan. And, you know, so the timing on it is somewhat, you know, specific. And you may recall that I actually talked with the North Shore Board previously about the potential of doing this, especially here in Kenmore, where we're seeing a bit more growth. Lake Forest Park is not seeing much growth, so it probably wouldn't be defendable there, but certainly we could consider it here.
There's a tremendous amount of growth for shoreline.
Yeah, so the middle section are all projects that are still in some phase of permitting within the city. They're waiting customer information. But eventually they will be given their building permit. A lot of these projects are kind of in a holding pattern right now, so we've already done pre-app with them. They're still active. They've already purchased land. They're kind of holding back because it doesn't pencil out for them to actually get their building permit. Some of the other projects that were off 148th and 5th, they had to actually wait until water upgrades were completed by North City Water, which is being completed right now. So when that's done, which is supposed to happen by the end of this year, we're going to see another big bump in growth on 148th on 5th Avenue. There's like 6 projects that are in planning right now, waiting for building permit. And those are all large multifamily buildings. And then same thing at 185th, there's 3 more projects that are slated for that area as well. So impact fees are done during pre-app. They're preliminary because sometimes building design changes. So we finalize the impact fees during the building permit review process. And then, like Chief was saying, when the time that permit's actually issued, the pre-app may have been a year or more before that. And then the building will be finished till 1.5 to 2 years later. So like a lot of the projects that we're getting to the point of finalizing it right now are from the 2018 building code and were issued permits in 2022. So that's kind of that span of time. So you're not realizing those funds. So the numbers you see are forecasted on the yellow, right? In the green, we have either received them or are going to shortly. Typically the ones towards the bottom are, we may have collected some, but not all. And then the red columns are projects that were pre-apps, and after a period of time, after we keep revisiting them, they either fall off because they just didn't happen. And then we keep a few in there that we think are still maybe viable. So they're just big maybes. But eventually, if they still don't move through, then those will drop off as well.
This is subject.
Yeah.
You know, I've asked Ryan to give his best guess as to this, you know, stoplight approach, so that we could have an understanding of what, because he's the most talented and the expert on this, as he could forecast and what the projects, which ones are actually gonna come to fruition or not. So this is very subjective.
And what's the time range of, sorry, I'm asking something. What's the time span of the green?
As far as from the collection point, so
I mean,
when
like, is it, you know, what time period does this represent, this dollar amount? Is it like all we've ever collected, or is it like what we've collected over a year?
that is what, so I apologize. I usually make this a little bit bigger. It's tough to get these Excel sheets to come out the way you want them. So if you look at on the left-hand side, you'll see 18 or 20. That's the year that permit was issued. And then the status is final. So that tells you that building has already been finalized. And then it kind of got cut off on this thing, but
I was just curious if it
Yeah.
represented like a year or 2 years.
so it's your
of impact fee.
So you're looking at between, yeah, you're looking at between 18 and 2023 is what that total is. Yeah, so you're averaging somewhere between just under $2 million approximately a year. Right? That's about where we've been if you're gonna average it out. So between like 1.5, $1.78 million a year is what you end up getting over that span of time.
Chief. This money has a certain, has to be used for certain things.
Correct.
Can't just go to the general.
It has to be used, it's actually very specific. It has to be used for capital projects and it has to be targeted for projects to mitigate the impacts of new development. And it has to be spent in shoreline, because shoreline's the one that's past the impact fees. Right. So, for example, it cannot just be used, even if it's a capital project, that, oh yeah, we were already planning on buying a new, engine, fire engine. On a regular basis and so forth, we couldn't pay for that. We might be able to pay for a portion of it and say that there is an impact on our replacement due to new development. But you would be hard pressed to replace the whole thing unless it was to address a new exposure or risk that the new developments were posing. Such as like Lake Point, for example. Okay, so if Lake Point was gonna go in, well, first of all, that's not a very good one because that would be so big. It would require a ton of different mitigation, but let's just use that as an example of like, we have a new risk here. And we need to, buy another fire engine to run out of this station or something. That could be justified, under impact fees. Another example is like, say, so like the ladder truck, we needed to buy another ladder truck because of all the development that was coming in. And so I was able to defend that purchase with using impact fees. And so, we have to be very careful, very specific about what we're using the fees for.
Would you ever want to say bank it for construction of a future station or something?
You can, but you also, you have to be careful because, you have to
Has
have,
to be like a
it's a
time
rolling,
frame.
yes, it's a rolling 20-year. And that's why I also do 20-year capital replacement strategies, but it's a rolling 20-year and they really actually kind of pull back and focus in on like the next 5 years. So if we were to bank a huge amount of money, and we want to spend it 10 or 15 years from now, that would be a problem. But if you were banking money, to buy a piece of property or to build a new station or something like that, you could lean into that. And a fire station with the value of the fire stations being what they are, you might be able to justify further than just 5 years. But you'd have to be careful and make sure that it was, again, intentional. And if you don't spend the money, you can't just bank it and, hey, we're gonna put $20 million aside in this thing for something in the future, way in the future from now. You can get in real trouble for that because it's not, the intent is to use the money to mitigate the impacts of new development. You would actually get obligated to returning the money back to the developers, potentially if you're not using it appropriately.
Can you use it for staffing?
No, capital projects only.
So you pay for the new HVAC here, the generator.
So-
But it has to stay in Kansas. If it came through some.
So for example, right now, it's the impact fees are spread out, well, I've used it for a couple of things, I've already mentioned. But one of the big things that we're using for is a portion of the 63 project and the LTGO payment or bond that we got for the project. Is paying for that LTGO payment, which is a portion, not the whole thing, a portion of the 63 construction. So it doesn't impact our operational budget. And which you may or may not remember, it shows up in the summary sheet of our annual budget. I have a little spreadsheet off to the side that shows impact fees collected and spent and the ongoing payment for the LTGO bond, which gets paid off at the end of next year, I believe.
So
Our UTGO gets paid off this year, LTGO is next year.
So if we're gonna do this for, let's say, you can more, it has to be more savings.
Correct.
To something, and then we at a point where we need. As your needs.
Yeah, that's a great question. I would have to take a look at really what the impacts are, because you have to be able to justify this and defend it and go to the city And the documents well, for example, for shoreline, I created 2 different documents. As part of our proposal and our justification for the impact fees, both of them are. The 3 pages long, I think. With a lot of it can be what you call fluff of definitions and then the need for responses, et cetera. So, but we would need to take that same approach and say, we are struggling. If I was to summarize it, it would basically be, if we're gonna go do impact fees in Kenmore, we'd have to say, we're struggling to keep up with our infrastructure due to the impacts of new development. I saw we saw this coming. And as soon as I possibly could, I was like, I'm going to, because then you can see the developments coming. And there was lots of justification for it. The city gave us estimates of population growth, over the next 10-20 years. And I'm like, this is completely justifiable. If you guys are interested in me, looking into this, I could actually, think I might delegate a little bit of this. So I could work with Ryan and we could work with the city of Kenmore to see what their forecasts are. And we could say, okay, that is a pretty significant impact that's gonna be to the fire department. We need to lean into this, and that's where we get that justification started. And then we'd have to develop the plan, work with the city to consider it as part of the comp plan updates.
So just to kind of back up a little bit, I know how it works, but just to let everybody else know how it works. City, we're not collecting money from the city, we're collecting money from the contractors, the developers.
Through the city. So the contractors have the impact fees, and it's not just fire. In shoreline, you're talking about parks, roads, and school, schools, were actually the very first impact fees that were allowed by the state. And so they collect all of these fees. A piece of this is fire, and then they take a little off the top, and then they transfer the rest to us. For administration.
Is there any other questions for?
One unrelated question. What is, what's going on for Sherry? It's just come down.
Mhm.
It's gonna be more, it's gonna be a building or just?
That is going to be a small commercial building, strip mall.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
Okay.
So I have a question, and I started to ask this, what is your gut feel of how, I mean, I know especially in shoreline, but even if you have input on, like, say, what's happening in Kenmore, we saw it coming. We were on this rocket booster trajectory, pretty steep, it seemed, for a long time, it seemed, and then a year or so ago, we had a conversation. It seemed like things were kind of coming back down to a reasonable amount. But what's your feeling, both shoreline and Kenmore, because Lake Forest Park doesn't really have much going on, but what do you see, gut feel or prognosticating, what are we forecasting?
So shoreline still has a fair amount of building left on the multifamily side. Because the land's already been purchased. Like I said, some of that's gonna be, is a waiting game because developers, when it doesn't pencil out for them to build, they won't build. But we're gonna see another 10 to 12 buildings over the next 2 to 3 years. We still have Shoreline Place, but that's over a 20-year period. So I'm being told that one of those buildings has already gone through pre-app, so they're moving. Because now that Sound Transit's done with the Sears building, that's all gonna come down and then that whole area is gonna get developed, but it's gonna be a long-term project. Shoreline still has a lot of building to do. It has slowed down now, but it's gonna pick back up again. But one of the bigger changes didn't really come from the city, it came from the state, right? So they're trying to do more density of middle housing, so they've changed the way that we zone, so now you can have a single family residence and you can build up to 2 DADUs on your lot. So that is most of the pre-apps I'm doing right now, that's what's happening. So, yes, the state required that the impact fees for single family residents, DADUs don't fall under that, so they said just cut them in half. So we're basically charging half what we would for a normal single family residence for that. But as far as Kenmore goes,
Can I follow up on that? What you
Yeah.
just mentioned? So how long has the middle housing new regulations been in effect in shoreline?
I can't tell you exactly. Shoreline, I think, has been talking about it over the last year and then just recently decided to allow it to happen.
And you're seeing a lot of building permits already.
Almost every single pre-app I'm doing is for middle housing right now. And then they're gonna get ready to vote to relax their parking requirements, so there's not gonna be any parking requirements. So be ready for that.
Yeah. I've heard about that too, but I
Yeah.
don't have control of that.
No, and I was gonna go to the city council meeting, and then I decided to step back after I did some additional research because there's a lot of research behind that. And I didn't want to step on the hornet's nest, so I
Yes, yeah.
backed out.
And actually, it's not just Charlotte.
It's
All
everywhere.
cities are doing this.
Yes,
So-
it's been going on everywhere, and we're just kind of, I mean, technically really behind because a lot of the other cities have already done it. And they're not going to change for us. We have to change for what's coming as far as how we're going to respond and deal with, you know, smaller roads is what they're going for.
You know, another thing that's potentially, for instance, we're talking about this, and there was legislation in this last session to look at two things: smaller elevators and single points of ingress egress for multifamilies, but you know, potentially restricted to the number of units. The elevator one seems to have died, but the egress has not. And so, but it is limited to no, I don't remember how many units it was. Do you remember how many units?
Well, they were gonna say 24, but they have a tag that's active right now. And they're trying to, basically, the legislator said, okay, we need to form a tag so that you guys can get together. And so they've got a bunch of professionals around the state that are discussing this to come up with the proper language on how they're actually going to implement this code. And then what bumpers they're gonna put on it. Because right now, the city of Seattle has been already doing it. They, I believe, are limited to 4 stories and I think 16 units. But what they're trying to figure out without getting into the weeds on the code is, you know, are they going to require wider stairwells? How is this going to affect the fire department and fire department response in a multifamily building? But they're pushing hard for it. And it really boils back down into the density requirements, right? They're trying to create more density. And in order to do that, they have to cut costs. And apparently taking a stairwell out is cutting costs and creates more density.
It is interesting because it creates the opportunity to build more units potentially if you're taking, you know, a stairwell out of, you know, instead of 2, you got 1. But one of the things that is likely to be required is a lot more of the mitigation systems, you know, for that stairwell. Such as like potentially pressurizing the stairwell, you know, smoke control, things like that. But it'll be interesting to see how this is really implemented. Senator Solomon has been kind of leading this, and it's likely to come true in some kind of form, you know, for everybody. It is a statewide mandate that they're looking at, so. Just another thing out there that we're gonna have to deal with and potentially have to adjust, you know, our operations, you know, and how we look at it when we're going to some of these structures.
One last question, Brian. Have you heard anything about behind the Dice Arena area?
I have not. Yeah, I've asked, I don't know, probably back in January, February, I asked the city where we're at with it, and I was told that the original developers pulled out, and that's the last news that I got. And I haven't heard anything since. We haven't seen any additional pre-apps come up. So it's kind of just, that's the Highland Ice Arena. Yeah.
They were gonna go.
It was a big to-do. They had everything ready to go, and then they stopped and they pulled out.
Oh, they pulled out?
Yeah.
Oh,
Tore it down and left.
well, it costs money to tear it down. I mean.
Oh, yeah.
They could have left it up and let it function.
Okay.
All right.
So I'll just go through the rest of this real quick, just kind of tagging on to where we're at with building. So currently we have 2.5 active projects, because we just TCO'd half of one. And then we have 2 fully active projects, one in North City and then the one off of 185th by the light rail. Lake Forest Park, we don't have anything going on right now, although there is still talk about potential development of the town center in Lake Forest Park. I keep hearing rumors from folks over at Lake Forest Park that there are people who want to redo that. There's a master plan to build multifamily and then redo all of the retail. I don't know how true that is. Something like that, yeah. I would imagine that the citizens of Lake Forest Park would have something to say about that. Kenmore, we have 3 active projects and I just did another pre-app for another multifamily building. So we are seeing some uptick in that here in Kenmore. They're not as big as the ones in Shoreline. They're typically under 100 units, but they're packing them in on small lots. So the Beechwood too is the most recent project that we have. It's off of 73rd or 83rd. I'm sorry. That's the newest project going. That's a very small lot, but it's a 6-story building that they're putting in there. And then we have like I said, another pre-app that just came through, very similar size. So we are seeing some of that multifamily come in Kenmore.
The 83rd all the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like right as you come around the corner there, they just little postage stamp lot. Yeah.
Yeah, the hospital is always a tiny little line.
So then we've got, like I said, still 14 proposed project in the city of Shoreline, no proposed projects in Lake Forest Park, and then the 2 that are still, one in pre-app and one coming to pre-app in Kenmore, so. And let's go through, just kind of let you guys know what we're actively working on in the fire marshal's office. So one of the big things that we've been really pushing the last year is compliance with all of our businesses. We use the compliance engine to maintain all the fire systems and all the businesses. So we're keeping a lot of folks on making sure that all of those fire systems are compliant, because it's kind of worthless to have them in the buildings if they don't work. So the TCE is kind of the babysitter for all that. That's how we keep track of what they call ITM, so inspection, testing, and maintenance of all facilities that have sprinkler system, fire alarm, smoke control, all that.
Is that like a software program?
Yeah, the compliance engine, it's an outside company, and it's just a software piece of software that the contractors use, and they report into that. So when they come in, they do a sprinkler system, do the annual testing, they send a report into the compliance engine, and then it keeps track of all the systems that we have in Kenmore, Shoreline, Lake Forest Park.
So that you don't physically drive around and look for a tag.
We still do. So when the deputy fire marshals are doing their annual inspections, they are checking that stuff. And they are also checking the compliance engine to see if there are any issues where they're going. And then, there's a fair amount of hours that goes into tracking all that stuff down, trying to figure out who's in charge and who needs to talk to who to make sure they're compliant. So I've just been adding these numbers in here so you guys can see, right now we're tracking almost 2,000 systems and we're at 82% compliant. A little bit down from last month, but a lot of that's because of the work that the DFMs have been doing. And so they're finding out more and more stuff. We had a big push here in Kenmore. All of the deputy fire marshals the last month and a half basically have been canvassing the entire city of Kenmore and Lake Forest Park, going to every single business. There were a fair amount of businesses that we found that hadn't been inspected in over 5 years. So we're hitting that hard, and a lot of our non-compliance and deficiencies has been coming from Kenmore and Lake Forest Park. We found that out early on in the year, and we decided that this is something that we need to take care of. So good for the businesses and the city of Kenmore. Inspections. So far to date, we've completed 950 between Kenmore, Lake Forest Park, and the city of Shoreline. I don't really talk about town of Woodway because there isn't anything.
Hey, sorry, I keep interrupting. Your report's very interesting. The thing about all the just Kenmore and they're out of compliance. Seems like kind of something that could be considered to be a benefit of this new, RFA, is that we have these systems in place to find these things. So the extent that you report out to Kenmore City Council, that would be something I would highlight. It would be,
Okay.
Stuff like that.
It was something that I touched on when I was doing the education tour, the marketing tour. But yeah, it's a good point of, you know, if we're following up with them or some stuff. So,
Yeah.
I will add too that, we were intentional of going to the total compliance engine, the software on this, 5 years ago.
Yeah, it's been a while.
So more than that.
Yeah.
To help us get more efficient with compliance, and it streamlines it and it engages them in following up with the business owners as well. So, which helps us not only track, but to get that compliant. It was really about making sure that we got the compliance. And so it was a big step forward, and we were following suit from Bellevue, because Bellevue had gone to that and seen a big leap forward in that compliance. So over time, I would hope that we will be able to see similar results.
Yeah, it seems like a great tool.
Yeah, we've come across, every month we have a meeting with the division, and this is one of the things that we discuss, and there's been a lot of things that have been found, have been fixed. Business owners aren't always excited about it because it costs them money, but you know, we use that opportunity to provide education to the business owners and let them know that we're actually doing this for them and for the people that use their facility for whatever business it is. It keeps, you know, their patrons safe. And then they usually turn that frown upside down. Fire investigations. So we're tracking about like we did last year, about this time. We're right around 24 fire investigations total. I don't really count the small little bark fires and things that we have that we usually see this type of year unless it's something major. These are actual fires that an officer has called for a fire investigator to come out and do a fire investigation on a building. So we were actually right at where we were last quarter. So we had 12 the first quarter, and then we had 12 this quarter. So 24 so far for the year. I was hoping to see some trending downwards, but we'll see where we get when we're at the end of the year for the totals. But
I mean, 24 actual structure fires.
yeah, 24 fires that involved the structure.
And that's.
Yeah. And then just a quick blurb on Michelle. So Michelle has been super, super busy. And she has been utilizing folks in our office when possible, and then as people are available, in operations. She's done a lot of work trying to extend to get into Kenmore and Lake Forest Park. Once she started doing that work, the phone started ringing off the hook. So the word's out and people want her to come in. So, trying to find ways to better support her in getting her education stuff done in the communities. I think as that word continues to get out, especially with all the social media pushes that we have done, and she's trying to continue to educate herself on that and get more in depth on the social media side, you know, it's going to get a lot busier. And I think we're going to have to some point in time figure out another way to either expand or do something with our education portion of the PIO. What's that? Okay. Yeah, I mean, I try to meet with Michelle at least once a week, and the trend is that she's working hard, you know, to get out there doing station visits, doing all the events, the neighborhood events. She's definitely the face of Shoreline outside of the operations. So
It seems like we might need to upstaff that just for redundancy as well as, you know, workload mitigation.
and I think that, you know, since the RFA, that's where I've seen the biggest change. So we did a lot for the RFA, and that put us out there a lot. And there's this wave coming in, and, you know, Michelle's been trying to keep up with everything. And so I've been trying to get our folks out as much as possible to help her when needed. But it's a good thing because we're really expanding on what, you know, we call community risk reduction. Education is one of the largest portions of that. We don't have a true community risk assessment yet, but that's a very big lift. But we do what we can to continue on the community risk reduction track, and a lot of that happens on the education side. That's all I got. That's the end of it. Any questions?
Questions?
All right.
I had so many questions, but it's interesting.
All right. Thank you guys for your time.
Share.
Not entirely, except that I thought about workloads and workflows. And you know, where our needs are, and you know, what our needs are, 26 budget conversations as well. Yeah, and I'll probably leave it at that.
Okay. What we done?
No, it's okay.
Okay, moving on. Thank you, Ryan. Standing agenda warrants, motion to approve.
Motion, warrants, I don't have the number. And for the amount of $472,955.43.
We have a motion by Commissioner Webster. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Commissioner Hogland. Comments, questions, concerns? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Passed unanimously. Commissioner report. Commissioner Woolen, do you have anything?
I do not.
Commissioner Harris?
No report.
Commissioner Webster?
No report.
Report.
Boy, we're like, okay, moving right on, well, it is something.
It's not being lively, it's respectful of our time.
Well,
Sorry.
financial report, we have in front of us May.
So I need to preface this, Rachel did an awesome job of trying to put this together. It's not gonna have a lot of value for us, until we probably get towards the end of the year when we can actually start seeing how things are, because like, for example, you know, the percentage remaining versus the targets, you know, remaining, and, you know, we're not, you know, the 4.1% under budget, that's, you know, that's not gonna be super reflective, and even if you get into the line items and it's, we've established the funds and all of that, but now the rest of this year will be interesting looking. I'm not gonna say bad, because it's not necessarily bad. It's not like we're doing a poor job or anything like that, but it's just not gonna be as reflective as what we're used to in previous years of looking at a financial reports. I think as we get towards the end of this year and we can start to see, you know, some more of the trends on the lineups that might have a bit more value. This will also be a challenging, and I'm about to push out an email scheduling the budget season, which will hopefully start probably about the middle of next month. You know, how do we capture what the line items are before and after line, and trying to set up for the 26 budget. So that's gonna be a little bit of a challenge for us. She is going to try to combine the year-to-dates before and after, so that we have some language or some numbers to look at to give us a benchmark about how we did against the budget. So more to follow on this. You know, I just want to preface this so that because it does look a little wonky. Some of the things, you know, and she did come. Well, first of all, is there any questions about what I just said or the line items that for me to take to
I have a
address?
question on page 4.
Page okay.
I was going through it and yeah, 100%. I understand that, but down here under community outreach, we've got labor and industry at 36%. Is it?
Community outreach online. Labor industry.
And that, to me, that one just kind of stood out compared to
Right.
the rest of them.
I can find out. L&I is typically a byproduct, formula byproduct of other things. So if we're over budget by something else, such as, well, it's probably the salaries PIO. I'll find out.
Okay, all right, that was the only other question.
Okay. Thank you.
I understand wonky, but that one really kind of, yeah.
I'm sure Rachel will be like, yeah, and she'll give me. Yeah.
Is there anything that you particularly wanted to highlight in this, or?
No, in fact, I spent a little bit of time with her and how to develop, you know, and the process and all that. I didn't really look at these numbers all that closely because I knew that they were gonna be, you know, not very valuable to us. I do want to bring your attention though to, if you turn to the overtime pages and so forth.
The drafts.
I'm sorry.
These drafts.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, she did try to combine them on the, not the first one, but the second line thing, the fire suppression and EMS, the staffing only. She, did try to look at combining, you know, because we had partial months and so forth, to try and give us a reflection. It's looked about, you know, normal for me, but I just wanted to bring your attention to that these will be a bit more accurate and reflective of how we're doing. Because she did combine, the year dates.
Can you explain just what this represents, the graph?
Oh, so the first one, the first graph that you have is for all overtime. Which includes staffing, disability, meetings, committees, deployments and all that. If you look right above or right below the title there, you can see what's included in there.
Mhm.
And we track that so that we can see how we're doing compared to previous years and against our budget. You know, to have a feel for, because this, as I think I've explained to all of you in the past, is like, as we budget for the next year. Overtime is one that is just so difficult to pin down, you know, as far as an accurate budget. So it's for us, it's trying to, you know, track, you know, how we're doing and against previous years and so forth.
And
The
if
second-
if something passes through like a wildland deployment, does that boost our numbers artificially?
Yes, and absolutely, and that's a great point there, and it's not just wildlands, other deployments and other things that might trigger overtime as well. You know, even, I don't know if she's got it listed, but like Christmas pay. For example, comes out of this budget, you know, in January for the previous year. And so there are things that will skew this, like, to your point, if we have lots of deployments. We're gonna pay a lot in overtime and it's gonna skew this, like, looking like we're way over budget. Because it doesn't reflect on the revenue side that we're also gaining a bunch of revenue from those deployments. Does that make sense?
Yeah, cause I guess I'm just trying to think of like, as a decision maker, how do I use this information? How do I interpret this and make sense of it?
If we see, you know, high skews, you know, like, well, let's look at April, you know, the 163,000. In April, you know, for that staffing, that was a high month. You know, for us, especially compared to the April of 2024 and even, you know, and so forth. So. It is a tool for us to track how we're doing and to be able to say, okay, we did have a bunch of deployments and that's why we skewed high. It would be a lot easier and a lot more accurate if we could say we have $100,000 of overtime on this deployment. We got $100,000 of revenue for that deployment. It's a net zero and that, so it doesn't reflect in this, because that is not allowable by auditors. So, which is unfortunate because it would be more accurate for us as the governing body and as the manager of this, it would be a lot easier for me to be able to be able to better forecast and be able to report out on this. So the one that we track a lot too is the next one, which is just staffing. That again, you know, can be reflective of a bunch of different things that can be going on. At times we may see, if we have, you know, even like a good flu. You know, that comes through and clears out a bunch of people on sick leave. You can see that reflected in some of these, even, you know, as we get bigger, takes a lot more to skew these things. But it is, you know, something to look at. I'm looking at these also as I've shared with you all, when we are adding staffing, why are we adding staffing? We're adding staffing because the overtime is higher than what I would like it to be. So this, to answer your question on this piece, I'm looking at this as a tool of like, where are the trends? So for example, we just offered 8 positions last week, which were accepted. So when they come on to ship, will it be a net increase of 8? No, because we have attrition that's going on as well. But if we're increasing our minimum staffing levels, assigned staffing levels, how is that impacting, you know, and are we making a movement of the needle of the pendulum on our amount of overtime that we're spending? And so I need to look at this and say, okay, we're at it, you know, we're moving in the right direction, or we're not. And I need to come back to you and say, it's not 8, it's 12, it's 16, it's whatever, you know, or we've gotten to a good place on this where I feel like our overtime is at a more manageable level, which is subjective. But for me, it's I really like our overtime to be in that 750,000, maybe $1 million level. Cause it's, I don't wanna eliminate overtime, cause that would be, very counterintuitive from a financial, it would not be the right decision. To overstaff enough to eliminate or nearly eliminate overtime would mean that we've got a lot of people on the payroll that, that we could use the money elsewhere, and it's good flexibility for us, and it's good for our personnel, and it gives us the opportunity to pivot if we need to. So I look at this and I look at the trends to try and determine if there's something that's skewing, or if there's something, if we're moving in the right direction. And how we compare to previous years, when I know what our staffing levels are from previous years, which is what we use when we get into the budget season. Of trying to get not only a better forecast of our overtime, but what are our staffing needs? So that's kind of long-winded, sorry. There's a lot of nuances to this, but overtime is absolutely the hardest thing for us to pin down. By far, on any part of the budget, and and has the most opportunity to skew us up or down, under budget, over budget, on a yearly basis. So that's why we track it too, it has its own special, graph, so.
I know I'm full of questions, but, so how many,
Reached your quota.
how
No,
many,
I like questions, and it means we're diving into it.
how many, line staff do we have right now?
Total?
Yeah,
I should know this, I just don't. How many firefighters? It's 60. With the medics or
yeah,
suppression?
the whole,
100 and
160, I think.
what?
The medics 160.
I assume.
Voice our medics 160.
Yeah. So. I thought it was more than that. So as we get towards, finishing up the budget for 2026, I'll be looking at this and going, is it moving in the right direction? Are we getting, because there's a number of different things, and you guys have heard me get on a soapbox. There's a number of different factors that affect our overtime, rates, or the amount of money that we're spending on overtime. And so for me, I want to move the needle in the right direction. I don't want to overreact. I don't want to, overstaff, but at the same time, I have an obligation to you, to our taxpayers, to make sure that the money is being spent wisely. And let's just say, to make it easy, let's say it's that we're at $2 million in overtime, and I'd like it to be at $1 million, not 2 million. Well, that's $1 million, okay, extra. Yeah, how many firefighters can we hire for $1 million? If it's $100,000, per firefighter, that's 10 firefighters, it's not 100, but yeah. But for sake of argument, do we add 10 more? And would that actually remove that $1 million overtime? It's not that easy, it's not that direct of correlation. It's much more complicated than that, and so that's and it's been creeping up, obviously it's gonna creep up as we get bigger and more people and our staffing, more apparatus, and if we elevate our minimum staffing levels, on a daily basis, that will move that needle as well. But at the same time, if we haven't changed our minimum staffing levels, let's just say, we're staffing the same level this year as we did last year, and we have more people, you would expect that the overtime would go down outside of COLA. You expect that the overtime total amount would go down. Well, if it isn't, well, why is that? That's my challenge of being able to try and if we're gonna move it down, there's only a handful of things that we can do to try and move that needle, and the biggest one is to add more staff.
Stop retiring.
All right, and then the final sheet is just, our cash level, and obviously it's pretty meager, because it's only got one line, because we just put the money in, so. But this is preemptively, this chart, this spreadsheet is for us to track how our cash flow is, where our highs and lows are. So that we use this spreadsheet more specifically as we get closer to the end of the year, so that I can forecast what our, forecasted cash on hand is for the end of the year, so we can prepare properly for next year. And, if you remember the budget from last year, there was this spreadsheet was actually included, actually it was doubled up for previous year and last year. So that Rachel, when she looks at this, can tell me, I'm forecasting that we're gonna spend about this much in the last 2 or 3 months, and we're gonna get about this much in revenues. We should have about this much in our end of year fund balance. So then I can make sure that I'm properly preparing for the first quarter of next year with our carryover. And with the amount of revenues that we need to generate through the fire damage charge and taxes, contracts and all that. Good questions, thank you.
Okay, moving on, do you have anything for strategic activity report? Same old,
Yeah, same stuff.
some stuff, okay, RFA activity reports, let's start with Chief Counties. Any questions, concerns, anything pop out?
Didn't find a facilities manager.
We did not. So we have paused on our hiring process and are evaluating our options, and we'll come back with you with a plan of how we're gonna move forward, which will likely be reposting, but we're still evaluating our options. But we're gonna give it a little bit of time, so.
And also I see this about the Kenworth to withdraw from NEMCO.
Yeah, that was, it's gonna be on the agenda for, next, the Monday or Tuesday. For Tuesday, it's an agenda item for Kenmore to officially withdraw from NEMCO. There's they hired a consultant to do an evaluation and prepare a draft report, which, if you'd like, I can, did I forward it to you? I may have forwarded, did I forward it? Okay, I can forward it to you if you'd like to see it. It's on the Kenmore agenda, and basically the recommendation is from that consultant that they feel like they can do better on their own standalone emergency manager. I disagree with some of the points that were made in the report, but the city has a much broader responsibility for emergency management than just how it affects us. I believe it will create more inefficiency and challenges for us from a resource standpoint and a response standpoint. For us, but again, the city has a much bigger responsibility for emergency management, and I don't want to be so egotistical to justify or to weigh in and be judgmental about how they need to look at it. So I think it's pretty disappointing though, because it will be the end of that. I don't believe that there's any real viable options to move going forward. Because it would just be Lake Forest Park and Shoreline Fire now in NEMCO, and we're a very minor, piece of it, so.
The city of Shoreline was not part of it.
No, not part of NEMCO. I believe that there still might be some conversations that are going on with Shoreline, Lake Forest Park. I thought they were Kenmore as well, but maybe not so much. But maybe between Lake Forest Park and Kenmore, maybe there's a relationship there that can be built. Yet to be determined. It's really not. We're a partner in NEMCO, but it's really not our business as to what Lake Forest Park does. I just hope that they can find a solution that will work for them. Kenmore will end up spending more money than what they're spending. This does not seem to be a financial decision. This is more of that they're seeing benefits that would outweigh, staying in NEMCO.
Is there anything else for Chief County?
What's happening at Station 44?
So 44 is a fairly old station. They, as you may or may not know, Station 42 and 45 went through some, were rebuilt. And 44 was the Snow 10 fire station. And they wanted to do a major remodel there or rebuild it for a long time. Rebuilding is not only costly, but the station is not very busy from a call standpoint, so probably not the best use of funds. So they're looking at a major remodel to upgrade and expand the capabilities out of that station. Rice Fergus Miller has been contracted with to provide design options and they are partway through a draft plan.
I'm attending a meeting on August 6th. With BC Sabino and Commissioner Kim. Or and with Vice President Miller, just to see how that progresses.
Anything else we should have? Okay, moving on quickly before Eric's got more questions. Deputy Chief Portstein. I have a question for any of the chiefs. I was reading in the paper when I got home, and started catching up online about the stolen fire engine from Everett. What are our policies? Do we have a policy?
We have a policy against people stealing our fire.
Yeah, well, that, I'm sure Everett did too, but when does it stop? Do we have anything?
Do we have a policy?
Do we have something in place to prevent something like this from happening?
Most of the time, people would have to be fairly familiar with the fire engines. I mean, it's not super hard, but it does take a little bit of knowledge to, you know, to actually steal it and drive it. It doesn't.
Not much compared to looking at all the crashed cars that, anyway.
So, we don't have, much in place to prevent it. We have had some fairly robust conversations about what we can do to protect our equipment and our apparatus. I'll share with you a quick story, because it is stories. Really good. We had an 8 car, long time ago. I had an 8 car. I was on scene. I had an 8 car. It got stolen. And then they wrecked it half a mile down the road. The reaction was, okay, we are now going to restrict access by doing a secret code, to be able to start the rig, and then our policy was to turn it off. So that you had to know what you were doing to get it started. Literally, it's like hit certain buttons, you just do, whatever. There was like a sequence that you had to do to start the speed car back up. Our guys couldn't remember how to start the rig back up. It got a bit frustrating, and then we started, and we did, and it was a reaction to it being stolen. And we moved all the way here, and then we started thinking about how often has it been stolen? Okay, never, not before this, and an 8 car is much easier to grab. So then we're like, okay, are we overreacting? I'm not saying this can happen to us. But I also think that, we need to be careful in overreaching and preventing, rigs being stolen, or even our equipment, access and facility. To the point where we now interfere with our people doing the work that they need to do. We have taken steps to protect our apparatus with all the personnel are not necessary to be in a structure or attending a patient or something like that, that they stay with the rig to make sure that it's, kept an eye on. This will not protect it from all, theft or anything like that. We're also looking at options for, if we can lock the equipment, or lock the compartments, or lock the equipment onto the apparatus. There are some safeguards that we've put into place, but there are some problems with, again, we now lock a compartment, and if that lock fails, and we need to get into that compartment for something that's life-saving equipment or something critical to our needs, that becomes a big problem. So there's not very many good solutions out there, but we are looking into what we can. I don't have a good answer.
I was say, so in other words, you're gonna
I'm trying to explain to you a little bit about the thought process that we've had, because this is not something that we completely ignored. But we don't have perfect solid solutions.
I know there's other things to be worked on other than this, but it just, I kind of set up little red flags. Those are pretty expensive pieces of equipment there. The fire engines, all of them. But
I would certainly say if a fire engine is turned off, it would be most people probably wouldn't know how to start a fire engine, get it into gear and move it down the road. If it's running at the time, you only have to do a few things, which is easy. Obviously, I'm not getting to that. You know, how to.
Okay, I'll go ahead and close out the items now.
No, I wish I had a better answer. I wish I had a better answer. Really,
What can we, is that something we work on?
we are working on, we are pursuing different options to figure out. Or what
Anything else for Chief Hookstein? Moving on to Chief Arms. Looks like we have a few wildland deployments.
Was the battery thing an actual a hazmat incident?
You wanna take that, Andres, or?
In the middle.
That's a good question. So yes, the short answer is yes. It did release it did release a gas that I can't remember right now. Hydrogen gas. So it did release hydrogen gas, reduced oxygen levels in the room. And currently, the hazmat consortium is the only response body that has the capabilities to deal with lithium-ion batteries, but energy is very different than hazmat. So currently in the zone, in the whole county, in fact, there's a discussion, an ongoing discussion about where electricity and energy and batteries fit into the whole hazmat response. But currently it does fall under the hazmat.
There was a hazmat
Really?
called.
We had a hazmat representative from Brooklyn Fire Company came
Mhm.
on engine 21. And then the Zipley fiber technician ultimately was the person who was able to help mitigate the emergency. He was not a hazmat technician, but he knew enough about it.
Speak.
But there were 24 500-pound lithium-ion batteries in that building that all overheated, bulged, and were. We don't know how close to exploding, but en route to explode.
So do we have a hazmat arrangement with Seattle Fire anymore, or do we use?
We have a-
East Side?
We have a
use
uniform
hazmat.
arrangement with Seattle, but our formal relationship is, and arrangement is with the zone.
Okay.
My internet.
Anything else? Let's move on to old business. Anything for old business, Chief? New business,
Business cards?
other than business cards, I was asking you first, so.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, it's been brought to our attention that, there was a desire to have the business cards made for the commissioners. For the RFA, with the RFA, thing on it, especially for North Shore, with the,
Name change.
yeah. Is there any desire for new business cards?
Yes.
Rick?
I don't know what the minimum order is, but
75.
how much?
75.
I could probably take a minimum order.
Go ahead, Gina, if you would, just order everybody then. I know Rick and I was gonna need some. This new commissioner, so.
If
Well, that's use my old ones.
That's what I would say.
You can still use, we're still the Shoreline Fire Department, so
Yeah.
you can use your old ones.
I quit using business cards 20 years ago.
Okay, Dave Harris did not want new business cards.
they do have electronic business cards now, so basically you just pull it up on your phone and someone can tap it or scan it.
With a QR code.
Yeah, so that's another option if somebody is wanting to buy that. So those are out there.
Yeah, I don't care.
Got all that too. All right. Projected agenda.
I do have one item to note, I will not be yeah,
Yeah.
on August seventh, Gina will be covering that meeting. And I will not be back until the 15th, which is only one day, so there is the potential that there may be a delay in the minutes from that meeting. And they may be needed to be represented.
So, with the short turnaround, if we can get them done, we'll have them, at that meeting, and we can get them. We'll bring them to the following meeting for, approval, so you have to approve 2 meetings worth of minutes at that minute. So, it just really depends on availability and all the workload, but I wanted to give you a heads up on it.
August 7th, the Commissioner Harris has got an excused absence. He can't get on Zoom.
I think I am gonna probably also be absent on August 7th.
Yeah, that's for sure.
You're not here,
Or,
okay, so no potential,
Harrison had.
both of us, okay.
I think find a Wi-Fi, I guess, if they try to get up to.
Well, we've got to use the Zoom option, David, if you're not on Zoom, then you're excused. They're good to go. We have confirmation for September 11th. The special meeting for the pinning ceremony.
Matt?
Yes, September 11th is one.
Yeah, did most or all?
My understanding is, most of them are coming,
I haven't received any,
Chief Kennison has that, I thought.
I haven't received any information.
Yeah, you were looking for what family members were attending, I know, but
Well, and to know, I guess, who's attending.
Chief Kennison has that information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and family members, who has all that.
Chief Kennison is working on that information.
I'll have an email too. Beatrice, I'll have him send it to you.
Thank you,
That'll be at 61, right?
That is at 61, yes.
that's it.
Okay, is there anything else? We have our Washington State Fire Commissioners Conference in October. You guys are interested in signing up, let the interest know, they have said please. I think that's it. It is 6:37. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
No more.
Don't need to.
We're supposed to say we don't do emotions anymore.
Very well said. Thanks. Already, everybody? Yeah, it's in there.